Welcome to the explanation of the entire plot of the Kaleidoskull Project series, i.e. my Lemon Demon fan series. This will cover pretty much everything in one neat little package because today is its 4th birthday! Yippee! So, 20,000 years ago, a caveman is just cavemanning around when he sees a bright light in the corner of his vision. He goes full Unga Bunga mode and gets possessed and gets super fixated on being the best hunter-gatherer or something, and then dies. This is the first documented case of a Kaleidoskull, a supernatural entity that appears in the peripheral vision of their host and forces them to act out on their innermost desire. It also draws other people towards them in order for the Kaleidoskull to find its next host, need be. Enter Farron, shit man, sexy scientist, the press love him. He is fascinated by Kaleidoskulls, which run rampant in Lemont, Massachusetts. Many cases have been recorded in recent years, including Reagan Pending, a yuppie, stockbroker, and architect. He's friends with Ernie Wright, who is unsuccessful and an outcast. However, Ernie is also unrequitedly in love with Reagan. Reagan Pending's wish goes as follows. I want to improve Lemon. The housing crisis is going to shit. Oh no! I must create the ultimate plan to solve this. This gets turned into haha big building, and an endless cycle of blueprints, dioramas, and planning. This goes on for 3 years until Farron catches wind that there's a supposed Kaleidoskull sighting in town. Farron starts planning the next big experiment, a human Kaleidoskull project, to see how they can interact. He starts by killing Reagan to see if the Kaleidoskull continues to possess the corpse. It does, and he decides to harvest the Kaleidoskull DNA out of him, and create several Kali-human baby prototypes. They're all mush and non-functional, and, die, or whatever, who knows. Until one, which he refers to as 002. Each prototype was 001 to 001.9, yada yada yada. This project is going well, and Farron starts beginning to think that 02 is the one. But because people believe he's gone down the cryptozoology path, his reputation tanks. The tests are going good, but 02 is yet to display anything other than mild telepathy. Years pass, and Farron discovers that her true powers may be activated by strong emotions, especially when tied to other human connections, something that she definitely lacks within the laboratory. Meanwhile, Ernie is recoiling from Reagan's death. Years after, his niece Ichigo is born. His wife divorces him after finding out about his love for Reagan. He gets custody of Ichigo when she turns 7. As she goes on to school, Ichigo meets Emerson Moon, a foreign transfer student in high school, then Cal Callahan and Cade R., who no one seems to understand IRL, but that's just me. Cade wins the championships for the Massachusetts Code-Off for his original video game named Polychroma, being awarded with an arcade cabinet of the game as a prize. When Cade returns from the award ceremony, he seems completely different. Though he was once friendly yet stoic, he has now turned completely antisocial and decides to drop out of high school despite being on his last semester of his senior year. Cade becomes reclusive, cutting off everyone including Cal, who is the one that's most close to him, and begins to work on his blueprints to what he believes will be a revolutionary machine that will change the world. He acts on his plans and begins to build this machine in an isolated place near Mount Everett. Spring grows to summer. Cade is sweating his ass off in a giant metal box. His last remaining humanity starts to think that this is how he'll die, alone, insane, and shunned. His Kaleidoskull brain makes him build this, only to set him up for failure. He turns on the machine and it fails. In a fit of confusion and anger, Cade rips the machine apart, piece by piece, over a crowd of enraptured tourists. The Kaleidoskull abandons him then. Farron also takes notice of Cade's story and decides to create an additional project to his experiments on how Kaleidoskulls affect their hosts after death. He kills Cade, sticking his organs into the cabinet that he won, posing it as a new game in the arcade's inventory. Distraught after Cade's death, Cal is forced to go to college despite being unable to eat, sleep, or do classwork. He becomes reliant on cough syrup in order to sleep. He starts hallucinating and disassociating, basically has a psychotic break. The things around him get reduced to just shapes. This is when he just decides to drop out and move back to Lemont. His parents are out of the picture, but he gets the cheapest possible apartment, it sucks ass, and 2 jobs as a radio show host and a grocery store clerk. While all of this is happening, 02 is around 17. Farron plans to kick 02 to the curb to see how she can fend for herself, and if the Kaleidoskull within her affects those around her. 02 freaks out, thinking that she can no longer be useful, just barely on the verge of using her powers. But Farron kicks her out anyway. He throws her to the wolves, basically, but monitors her due to him knowing where she is constantly. Cal, still trying to cope with everything he's been through in the past few months, goes on little walks. On one of them, he ends up running into 02, who is still in her hospital gown. Cal offers to help her, and he takes her in. Due to the fact that she doesn't have a name, Cal decides to name her Cecil Nelson, after a pun on his own name. The two become fast friends, and eventually Cecil opens up about her past, revealing how she is part Kaleidoskull and how Farron created her. Meanwhile, while at a frat party, Emerson Moon attempts to summon Cade through a Ouija board, and ends up summoning a Kaleidoskull instead. The Kaleidoskull goes on to find Cal as its next host, due to his weakened mindset. Cal wants to figure out just what exactly Cecil is capable of, since Kaleidoskulls have been tied to several different unsolved deaths in Lemon, starting with Reagan, and most recently with Cade, and his mysterious arcade cabinet that just showed up one day. He begins to seclude himself from Cecil, not really speaking to her about what he's doing when she asks. He ends up spilling his guts over the radio show, which Cecil hears the entirety of. Cecil and Cal make up, promising not to keep any more secrets from each other. Cade's spirit possesses the cabinet. The game becomes popular due to the prevailing effects of the Kaleidoskull. Even though the Kaleidoskull possessing Cade may be gone within him, because he survived, it transferred some powers onto him, hence why the machine was so popular and now is drawing other people towards him. The kids also get mad at the game because they think that it's too hard, but Cade just messes with them. However, once the cabinet starts to leak blood due to the actual human organs inside, it has to be removed, much to Farron's chagrin. Seeing this as a failure, Farron reanimates Cade from his dormant state, but keeps him incapacitated until the time is right. And instead, Farron shifts his focus back to Cecil. Realizing how much she's bonded with Cal, he sees this as his call to action, to finish what he started. Cecil does not leave the apartment due to her and Cal's paranoia, but one day when the two are shopping, Cecil swears that she sees a familiar man in a purple coat. They end up walking home late at night and get the feeling that they're being followed. They're stopped when a man comes up behind them and chloroforms them both. When the two wake up, they're on examination tables in a very familiar setting. They find that the door is unlocked, but as they're trying to escape, the figure on the other table begins to sit up and gasp for air, clutching their throat. Cal turns around. It's Cade. Cal freaks out, now knowing that his friend is not in fact dead, but Cade reassures him that he'll explain everything once they get out of this mess, though he wonders where Cecil came from. Cal and Cade have to carry Cecil due to her fatigue. It seems like she's growing weaker while she's in here. They run through the maze of hallways, but are stopped when Cal is tripped by someone. But suddenly, there's a gun to Cade's head and a boot pinning Cal to the ground. It's Farron. Whoa, big surprise! Farron is trying to make Cecil use her powers by any means necessary. He taunts Cal all the while strangling him, even calling Cade a dead man walking. You did this to yourself, whether you like it or not, he says. The Kaleidoskulls are always drawn towards you. Seeing her friends on the verge of death, Cecil is forced to use her powers, blowing up that sector of the lab due to the blast of energy she releases. Farron revels at her. Finally, she's useful. He pulls himself out of the revel. Farron feigns friendliness, offering to take her back with a promise of treating her better, in exchange for just a few more tests. He looks terrified at the amount of power she has. This only enrages Cecil more. She attacks him with all the force she has, eventually using her spikes as a projectile, stabbing him. Farron collapses to the ground, and his fate is unknown after that. Then Cecil passes out from the energy she used up. Later, unable to find Cade, Cal finds Cecil limp. When she wakes up, she starts freaking out, thinking that she just killed her own father. Cal comforts her as Cade finds them both. Cecil and Cade are introduced to each other, finding out that they are both part of Farron's experiments. Cade reveals the truth about what happened, despite how bizarre it might sound. It's bitterly cold. It's late January in Massachusetts. They return home on a bus, Cade departing, stating that he has to go home to his parents. Cecil is practically catatonic, and both of them are shaken, but they rest easy knowing that no one can hurt them now. As winter turns into spring, and it's been 1 year since this shit show started, the three reminisce on their experiences, still knowing that the Kaleidoskulls are very much out there. Cecil reintegrates within society, and even becomes friends with Emerson and Ichigo. Cal also eventually begins to take online college courses to help him make up for lost time. Cal and Cecil have become incredibly close, even considering each other their partner. While they may come from very different backgrounds, they both know that they've made each other who they are today.